What y'all doing? Cooking crappie?
Cooking that crappie, boy.
Right.
Fine shot.
Welcome to this week's show for Drawn to Whitetails. As you saw in the pre-roll there, we got together and ate some fish that Tony had caught earlier this year, and then we had a little fun shooting archery equipment and just fine-tuning our bows after we got done eating. On this week's show, we got a couple topics for you. Both of them go with hand in hand with being undetected as you're hunting. I'm going to touch on wind direction. That was one of the toughest things for me to learn as I was younger, and I'm going to talk about one of my sets that kind of clearly shows how you should position the wind with the way you're hunting your stands. And then Josh Yancey is going to jump into entry and exit routes to and from getting to your stands. And these two things help you just go undetected and help you not educate deer as you're hunting. And then we'll finally touch up with a shipment we got in from Covert this week. Got our shirt, got our cameras, and what we'll be doing in the weeks going forward. So hope you enjoy this week's show. Stick around with the end, and we'll explain a little bit more about what we'll be touching on next week. All right, we're over here at my lease, and I'm going to talk about something that was extremely difficult for me to learn as a young hunter, and something I've learned quite well over the years, and that's how to play the wind direction. And I know people still have trouble with that, but I have a couple buddies, and my dad included in that every time they go hunting, they call me to say, hey, which spot should I hunt based off this wind? So that was one of the toughest things that it took me to learn as I was growing up, and I want to try to explain a little bit more so maybe it'll help you all. With this stand that we're going to choose today, it's going to be over my left shoulder. It's about a 50-yard stretch of woods here that I'm going to have to go through to get to this stand. And when I get to this stand, it's going to be basically facing south, maybe a little bit of southwest. And I want that wind hitting me directly in the face. So whenever the deer usually come out in front of the stand, that way the wind's hitting me in the face and it's coming back up this hill, and no deer can pick me off because of the wind. The only way they're going to pick me off is if they come behind me, and usually they're going across instead of straight into that area. So if they have a crosswind, they can't pick me off. So let's walk over here, look at this setup, and I'll try to give you some video here of how that lays out. All right, we made it over here to the stand. The stand's just right up here on top of the hill. There's a wood line right here. And as you can see, we're overlooking this big bottoms down here. And that's what we were talking about with wind direction. And this applies to every stand, not just this stand, but this is what I'm looking for, and this is what we'll touch on going forward. But with this stand, west is this way, south, and then east. So north is behind us. So anything with a south or southwest wind, we're blowing right into our face and blowing back to where we came from, where we don't think very many deer will come straight out of the north. Maybe go behind the stand, but they're just going to be a crossing wind, so maybe you can get away with that. But anyway, these deer come out of the west, out of the bottoms, and out of the east, and work into these ag fields at night. And when they do that, they're in front of you. They're not going to smell you, and that's the key with wind direction. It's their best sense, and if you can beat their nose, you can beat them a lot of times. So that's why we like the way this place sets up. We'll touch on it more again as we go forward on all of our sets, but this is what we're looking for, minimizing the amount of deer that can detect us with the wind. Josh is going to start the next section. He's going to talk about entry and exit routes, and that's one of the key things about this is entry and exit, but he's going to touch on that more with his spots.
Hi, I'm Josh Yancey, Drawn to Whitetails, and on this part of the show we're going to talk about entry and exit routes. And just to break that down and make it short, is that when we talk about entry and exit routes, we're talking about how do you get in and how you get out of your stand. So let's rewind a little bit. Back when I was a kid and even a young adult growing up, talking about deer hunting, when I'd go out and scout and look for a place to put a stand up, most thing I was looking for is deer signs, you know, trails, tracks, rubs, scrapes, whatever. And then I would put my stand up. Well, as I got more mature and learning how to hunt bigger deer and trying to kill bigger deer, and not only trying to kill bigger, just deer hunting in general, is in my opinion, you want to look first how you going to get in there and how you going to get out of there without bumping deer. Because you may have the hottest spot in the world, but if you go in there and you bump deer and you're scaring deer while you're getting in there or you're coming out, pretty soon you're not going to have the hottest spot in the world. Because these deer are going to figure out they're just going to move and you're just going to bump what deer you're hunting out of there, especially if you're hunting mature bucks. So that's why I think one of the most important things, and you know, Drew touched on it first of the show, is wind direction. You have to hunt the wind, but you also have to find out how you're going to get in and how you're going to get out without bumping deer. That's a really important factor. And we're standing here in this creek, and the reason we're standing in this creek is this is one of the ways that we use to get to our stands. We use creeks, we use ditches, and on this particular creek we have a stand that we use. It's a really good spot, but the way we access that spot is we use this creek to get there. We also use, this creek runs into, and it has other tributary ditches that comes off that feed into this, and we can use those tributary ditches to slip up. And in fact, on this particular stand, we use one of those tributary ditches to get up in there, slip up in there, and undetected. So, you know, it's a really good spot, and we can get in there. We don't cause any disturbance. We can get in there, we can slip up into the stand, we can slip right back out without bumping any deer. And that's what I look for when I'm looking for a spot. The first thing I look at is I look at a map and see what the boundaries are, see what the land looks like, and then the next thing I look at is how am I going to get in there and how am I going to get out of there without bumping deer. So I encourage you, and I think it really will have changed the way you hunt, is to start looking at those things. And when you look at that and you see it on a map, and then you see how can I get in there and how can I get out, and then you start picking your stand, and you can start picking out wind direction and that kind of stuff. And it's just going to improve your odds, I promise you, because it does improve your odds. So thanks for watching on that. And also let me touch on another topic on trail cameras. We're going to have a show coming up on trail cameras and what we're doing and how we set our cameras up and why we set them in these certain places. And that goes for the same thing in trail cameras on how we check our cameras. There's certain places that you can check, you know, weekly, and you don't really affect anything. There's certain places you can check, you can't check that often. So it just depends on certain farms. But even checking trail cameras, you want to be careful how you're getting in and how you're getting out of there. You want to set your cameras up to where it's easy to get to and you can ride in, you know, without, I don't like to walk in to checking trail cameras. So, but we'll touch on all that on another show. But anyway, I hope this segment helped on entry and exit strategies. I think we'll be having a lot more on this, and you'll hear us talking a lot more about that in the future as we hunt these different sets. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And remember, the season never ends.
All right, well, that's this week's show for Drawing the Whitetails. Hope you learned a little about wind direction and entry and exit to the stands. As I began as a hunter, it's evolved. You found your spots, and then you learned, I learned wind direction, and now I'm to the next step of making sure you don't bump deer as you're exiting or leaving or getting to your stands. We got our shipment from Covert this week, so we're going to be putting out our cameras and touching on that in the next few episodes.
Well, I mean, so I guess that's all we got for this week.
That's all we got for this week. So just stay with us. We're going to throw some pictures up here and some pictures we've already got of the deer on our Covert cameras. And just stay with us coming weeks as we continue to do this.
Thanks for watching. Remember, the season never ends.
That's right. It doesn't. It never stops. That's Shay, my wife. She'll